I say, well, let's look at the numbers. Let the numbers do the talking. So if you're going to make a pretty good return on selling the property, even if you have to go into a higher interest rate, but you get the home you want, we can always refinance that. We also can talk about the option of buying down the rate. You mentioned that early on. We are seeing that option start to come around where instead of doing a closing cost assistance, we're saying, hey, let's ask for a rate buy down. So we're starting to have those conversations. And if you as an agent out there are listening and you're not doing seller net sheets for your agents, for your clients, you're not doing them a service, because in this next market, there are going to be a lot of things where people want numbers and they are doing the research. So you want to make sure you're providing that, and that's bringing value to clients.
Welcome to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast, where nothing is off limits. If you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you want to learn some of the insider secrets and uncensored truths from the true professionals in and around real estate, you've come to the right place. Now, let's buckle up for the uncensored truth about real estate and join your host, Brian Cardenas.
All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Make sure if you are watching us on YouTube to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified of our next release. And if you're watching us on your favorite podcast platform, we'd love to have you give us a 5-star rating and share this with your friends and family that you think might benefit from learning a little bit more about real estate. And as we always do, we like to bring people on the show here who have a clue what they're doing, because unfortunately there's a lot of people in real estate that don't know what they're doing. And so today we wanted to bring on Amanda Gordon with AM Home Group at eXp Realty. Amanda, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So you have a high standard to meet here. You have to prove that you have a clue what you're doing.
That's right. That's right.
So if you would, to start us off here, just give us maybe a little bit of your background, kind of where you started, how'd you get into real estate, and then how did you end up where you're at right now?
Yeah, so actually, I actually worked for 10 years as a human resources manager and got a degree in clinical psychology, thought I was going to go heavily into that route, and grew up with parents who were always doing investing. And so I was like, you know what? I can do this. I can do real estate. Everyone thought I was crazy. I gave up a fantastic 6-figure job, jumped full force into real estate, had no plan B at all. And I was determined to make it work. And it has more than exceeded everything I thought it could be.
And that's a good way to do it, is jumping in with both feet and not having a plan B, isn't it?
It's a great way to do it because it gives you motivation. And one of my good mentors said, you can't expect full-time results on a part-time schedule. So I went full force, no plan B, and it's given me the drive I need.
And what part of the country do you primarily work in?
So I'm in Northeast Ohio, recently just expanded. So we're also Western Central Ohio. And here in 30 to 60 days, we'll be down in Florida as well.
Everybody's migrating to Florida, aren't they?
Everybody.
I guess it's that warm weather and freedom that people like, huh?
They love it. They love the palm trees.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about the makeup of your team, if you would.
Yeah, so I myself am the team lead and also the listing agent on the team. We have 2 buyer's agents that we like to call our realtor partners. And then we have an operations director and a transaction coordinator. Nice.
So you've got a full service team to be able to handle all the customers. You're not just a one person trying to, wear 15 hats.
No. We have a full team, and we are looking to bring on 3 more full-time agents. So we are busting at the seams, and we're very excited and happy about that.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So we're recording this now, middle of January, and we've seen some shifts in the market. Can you kind of tell the listeners and the viewers here, what you've seen maybe from the October, November, December timeframe, and what's changed come mid-January?
Yeah. So this is a big topic that, I just keep trying to get the information out there. Just to give you some perspective, I am in the weeds. So I am on the ground every day with my investors, with my buyers, with my sellers. And we've had a transition. So as you've seen this market, it was heavy, super crazy. We had people, fighting over toilet paper and whatever else, paying multiple pricing over to get these houses and waiving inspections. That we were told that this market was going to bottom out, everything was going to hit the ground. And we thought that was going to make everything stop. It's been the exact opposite, Brian. Like, it's been absolutely crazy from October, November, December, now January. It has been a steady flow. We are still seeing houses go in multiple offers. We are still seeing people trying to do like outbidding, waiving inspections. It's just been a different type of market. And what's interesting is it's really dependent upon location right now. So prior, you would have seen it was everywhere. Right now, it's dependent upon location. And, fortunately for me, my clients are in those locations. So it's been crazy.
So did you guys experience a slowdown at all in your market last year?
For my team, we did not. I have talked to a number of agents that it's like hit or miss. So we've had half of our bundle of agents that have experienced a tremendous slowdown, and they kind of just saw things level out and then it dropped off. And then for others, it has remained very steady, very, very aggressive the entire time.
Now, do you find that to be largely due to who your client mix is, being a lot of investors, as opposed to people who focus mostly on, people buying a primary residence, buying and selling their primary residence?
Yeah, some of that, but we've also seen a lot of relocations, which has been interesting. So, one thing that I tried to explain to people is last year when we were in the midst of the crazy market, a lot of people said they weren't going to buy or sell. They were going to suspend that, go ahead, start renting a property. And that was their decision. But now their leases are all coming to an end. And so coming up here in March, I just keep thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if we're this busy now, March is going to be crazy, because that's typically when we start to see families get back into the market. They want to get into a property before summer hits to start the new school year. We also are going to see a lot of leases start to end, and people are going to jump back into the market. And investors have never stopped. So I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty luscious year.
Yeah, that's great, because I think a lot of markets, saw a pretty healthy slowdown toward the end of the year. I mean, as soon as interest rates increased, and they increased substantially throughout the year, but we saw, the rates get into the sevens and, almost getting close to eights. And, in a lot of markets from the people that I talked to, there was a pretty good slowdown because of that. And then the holidays is typically a time where we do see a slowdown in a lot of places, between Thanksgiving and the New Year. And boy, man, it just seems like the floodgates opened up as soon as the New Year happened. I mean, everybody in different parts of the country that I'm talking to, it's just like going crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And it's interesting because, you never really know specifically, is it just your market that's experiencing it, or is it happening everywhere? But there has been a tremendous floodgate that has opened up probably like 2 days after Christmas and leading into January. I mean, we're seeing numbers that we've not yet seen before.
So I know you and a lot of us in the industry have been trying to preach to buyers, especially the first-time home buyers, that despite what interest rates look like, you really need to get into purchase a house, because you had the opportunity in markets where it did slow a little bit to be able to negotiate and to be able to get into a house. Rates weren't where you wanted them. I mean, anybody that was thinking they were going to get the twos and the threes, obviously that's gone by the wayside. Hopefully people understand that we're probably never going to see that again unless we have some crazy global pandemic or something like that.
Yeah.
But now it's even that much more important, because you have the natural cycle of what the market does, like you mentioned, in the spring and the summer, that we're not quite there yet. And, it sounds like you guys are still having multiple offers and overlist. I know in our market, we're seeing a lot more give from sellers still. I know in California, there's still a lot more give from the sellers in terms of pricing breaks, seller concessions, interest rate buy downs, and things like that.
Yeah.
what can you tell to like a first-time buyer who was probably locked out of being able to buy in 2020 and 2021 and largely 2022? I mean, why is it so important for them to jump in now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I would tell you is you can change your interest rate, you can't change the house. So I've been trying to tell people that when you find the home that you like, you better jump on it now, because I just firmly believe, based off of the trend we've been seeing, if you wait too much farther into this, not only will you get yourself back into paying more in a multiple offer situation, but you now have higher interest rates as well. So that holding out in the long run may not be your best bet. We can refinance your interest rate. And Brian, I'm sure, you have some wonderful, UMortgage is known for doing fantastic rates. So we tell people, get into purchasing the property that you truly want, and then give it just your 6 months or whatnot, and then refinance that property, and you'll probably see a big reduction in your payment. For people who are flip siding of that and they're waiting, you are going to pay more for the property and you're going to pay higher interest rates. So it doesn't make sense to wait.
Yeah, I mean, I always try to tell people it's like a lever system. You have increase in prices largely fueled by low interest rates. So you got high prices, low rates. Well, we got high rates and prices started to come down. Well, as soon as we start to see rates come down, which they're already trending down, you're going to start to see prices go back up again.
Absolutely.
So, the idea to time the market, it's really not possible, because those market forces are, working against each other. So, yeah, you can wait and get a great interest rate, but like you said, you're going to pay a lot more for the house.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing right now I keep telling people is, the location of the property is going to make a huge difference, and also who your realtor is. You need both of those in your back pocket in order to make a good purchase in this next market.
So that kind of leads me to a question that I love to ask of realtors, because this is, in my view, one of the hardest things for buyers and sellers is, how do you choose the right realtor? Because they can go online, find somebody, they can get a referral from a family member. Those might be combinations of what you might use, but like, what kind of questions, what kind of things should they do to vet out, is this the right agent for me?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, you want to have a conversation with your agent. If you don't feel it's kind of like a dating, you kind of want to sit down, you want to have a conversation and see if there's a connection with your agent, because the way your agent makes you feel is exactly the same feeling or worse that they're going to start giving to clients. And so I always try to tell people, sit down, have a conversation. I've had agents, I've had clients go as far as getting reference checks on me, doing background checks. I've had them call around and just to find out who I am and, what I do and how I work. And then also looking at my past practice. So I tell people, look at the past practice. If it's a brand new agent, they've never sold a home before, you may want to make sure that you're asking some serious questions, at least making sure at a minimum that they have a good support team to help train them along your transaction. But it's really important in this new market with what's coming, just to make sure that you are asking the right questions, asking, do you actually sell in my area? If someone calls you, do you answer the phone? If you try to call your agent and she doesn't call you back, or he doesn't call you back, or their voicemail box is full, it's not really a good sign, because likely when they're working with clients to represent your home, they're going to do the same thing, So it's just, I really am big about reflection. And I try to teach that to my clients when we're doing deals as well.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anybody doing like criminal background checks on their agent. I mean, you kind of give off that vibe, of kind of like criminal look, and I guess that's why they.
I must.
That's pretty extensive look into the background of an agent, but
right.
I think those questions are good, because if you can see how someone is behaving, how they treat their business, their responsiveness, that's all really important in finding the right person to represent you, because it depends on what side you're on, but it applies to both. Like if you're trying to sell a property, I think a lot of people got used to the fact that You could put a property on the market in the last couple of years and it was gone in a few hours. And so there wasn't really a whole lot of marketing involved. That's not going to be the case now. I mean, it certainly hasn't been the case in this last year.
Yeah.
Like there is definitely marketing that had to happen, staging, all of those things that are important, making sure that, you make the property look as good as you can. I've had somebody on to had a good saying, like, it's kind of like dating. We all use this dating analogy for some reason, but it's kind of like dating. Like you're not going to go on a date, wearing a burlap sack, and try to make a good first impression.
Right.
And it's the same thing when you're trying to list a property. You've got to make it as appealing as possible when there's choices for buyers, and buyers have more choices right now. Like, how's your inventory situation looking?
So in our area, our inventory has remained pretty low, considering, just how many buyers are still looking for properties. And like I keep saying, that buyer demand is going to get more and more elevated. So when you're looking at properties versus buyers and then realtors, I mean, recently I think the number was supposed to be 30% of realtors were going to get out of the business. We now have about 40% getting out of the business. So now we have a limited number of realtors, limited number of properties for sale, large amount of buyers. You've got to stay very active in marketing and being able to learn the markets, navigate what's happening. And you'll probably, you do a great job of this yourself, but video marketing is a huge thing right now. People want instantaneous. They want to be able to put face to name. And what better way to do that than video marketing?
Yeah, it allows people the chance to see the personality, whereas a lot of these like short reels or just, pictures and images and text, like you don't get anybody's personality from that. And it's important. You don't want to be working with somebody for, 30 days to 6 months on the process of selling a house or looking for a house, and you can't stand every time you got to talk to them. Like that doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
So I do have a question though, because of what we're seeing in the market with prices and rates. Like, how does your advice come to sellers? So you've got somebody that's looking to sell a house, and they're thinking they want to buy a house, but they had a rate at like 3%, and they might be looking at whatever it's going to be, 6% or whatever. Like, how does that conversation go with someone? What kind of advice would you give to someone, or what questions would you ask them to determine, should they do that? Should they sell? Should they keep it? Is this the right time? How do you handle those conversations?
Yeah, so we actually, as our team, we've created options for our clients. So one thing I think is super important, and this kind of goes back into like picking your realtor, it is our job to provide solutions and value to our clients. And so when they come forward and they have a situation like that, I say, well, let's look at the numbers. Let the numbers do the talking. So if you're going to make a pretty good return on selling the property, even if you have to go into a higher interest rate, but you get the home you want, we can always refinance that. We also can talk about the option of buying down the rate. You mentioned that early on. We are seeing that option start to come around, where instead of doing a closing cost assistance, we're saying, hey, let's ask for a rate buy down. So we're starting to have those conversations. And if you as an agent out there are listening and you're not doing seller net sheets for your agents, for your clients, you're not doing them a service, because in this next market, there are going to be a lot of things where people want numbers and they are doing their research. So you want to make sure you're providing that, and that's bringing value to clients.
Yeah, I think one of the things too that sometimes sellers maybe haven't thought about, and you do some of this too, is you might not have to sell the house. Like, a lot of people think they've got to sell the house. Most people have built up a good chunk of equity over the last couple of years, and they need to take that and push that forward to the next property. But there may be options to not sell the house, especially if you've got a really good interest rate on it. The rents that you might be able to get, that positive cash flow that you might have could potentially help offset the higher interest rate that you have temporarily. And then, like you said, if you can get a refinance done and lower your payments, you still preserve that positive cash flow by holding on to the property. Like, is that one of the things that you talk to people about as well?
Yeah, there are some situations where I tell my clients it's not the right time for you. You do need to hold off. And then, we do have another option that we have talked to some of our clients about. If their home has extensive work that needs done, and we're like, I can get you a return right now to help you out, but it's not going to be the type of return you're wanting. Our team does have a program available where we can help a client partner them with a contractor, get that home into a little bit better of a condition, and then allow them to be able to take more home on the table. That's just another option that we're now providing.
That's good. And so, when you are working with investors, what is some of the trends that you're seeing within investors in your market?
So, it's interesting. All investors have a different method they follow. So, whether that's the Burr method or they have a flip and hold method, a lot of different styles. But one thing that is remaining very consistent is location. We're seeing a huge uptick, and most of our investors are purchasing in the Akron location. That seems to be a consistent trend. It has not died down in more than 2 years, and we're not seeing any projection of it changing. And that really is because they're right between our Canton location, where our Hall of Fame is located, and then Cleveland, which is known for, the livelihood of business owners. So it really is, that has remained a consistent trend. And then we're also seeing the way that investors are doing things. We used to see a lot of flips, and that has transitioned. We're now seeing people that are actually purchasing properties, they're fully rehabbing them, getting renters in place, and building a fantastic partnership with our housing departments. So it's actually, when a lot of people hear, like, wow, there's all these investors buying up homes, they're not realizing that they're actually removing a lot of people out of homeless shelters, taking them off the streets, and giving them a place to stay.
That's interesting. So, is that through Section 8 housing?
Yep, there's Section 8 housing. We also have our actual housing department for Akron and Stark County, and a lot of them are starting to partner. So investors are partnering with these housing departments and creating new opportunities for people to not have to go to homeless shelters or stay with family members. They're giving them fresh opportunities to actually live in homes.
That's interesting. That I think that's something that, bears looking at for a lot of communities, because I think homelessness is something that is, pretty much pervasive almost everywhere.
Yep.
And for it to be financially viable for investors to come in and purchase properties or apartments or whatever they're using to provide these houses, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's a great thing. So at the end of the day, working with investors it's been just a full circle. You're taking people off the streets, you're taking people out of bad home situations, and you're part of a solution for the neighborhoods.
That's great, because I mean, there's so many different challenges that I think the housing market faces. I mean, aside from interest rates and home prices, I mean, home prices is actually a big deal
Yeah.
because of the fact that it makes things, very difficult to afford for the typical people. I mean, wages have gone up over the last couple of years, not quite keeping pace with inflation. And definitely not keeping pace with home price increases, because a lot of
Mhm.
markets is, 20 to 30% a year the last couple of years. It makes things difficult. And when you think about it, I don't know what a good solution is. I don't know if you have ideas on it, but there seems to be a lot of investors, not the individual mom and pop, buying one house here, one house there, but institutional investors, hedge funds and pension
Mhm.
funds getting into it, and buying up swaths of houses. It's happened a lot in the Phoenix market here. Are you seeing that there from the institutional investors that buying big quantities of properties? And
Yeah, we are, but it's interesting. It's kind of like a little hodgepodge of them that are doing that, but most everyone else are your actual standard investors. Just to give you a prime example, this is the type of people that I'm working with. We have an investor. She's fantastic. We do a lot of high volume. She actually found a property that she loved, but she realized that there was a senior citizen that has been living in that home for over 19 years. And she could not bear the thought that if she purchased that property and increased rent on her, that she would be removed from the home, that she would not be able to pay that. Those are the type of investors that I am working with. And, they're taking into account their financial situation, but they take a lot of care into the clients. So, I'm sure there's a lot of groups out there that are trying to do more of the big bulk purchases. They do that, mostly on the commercial side of things. But here in our region, we're working with fantastic investors that are actually bringing, like I said, value and a lot of resources to people who otherwise wouldn't have it.
That's a great group to be connected to, people that actually have some heart in what they do. I mean, it's not always, money over people. And when you can put people, over money, I think money ends up following at the end of the day. So with what the market has that you're seeing in the Akron area, are you seeing a lot of that then primarily being the long-term rentals and working with the housing department? Or are you seeing maybe not in Akron, maybe in more Cleveland area or Canton? Are you seeing a lot of Airbnb stuff too?
So we have a House bill. It's House Bill 563. So they are trying to be able to start banning. There's organizations throughout the communities that are trying to ban the use of Airbnb. And through the House most recently, they are beginning to slowly overturn the jurisdictions from being able to put bans on people and saying that you can't use your property the way you want to use your property. So that is a fantastic win because up until probably about 2 months ago, none of our investors, unless you purchased in very select regions or you were a commercial buyer, you could not Airbnb your property. So that's another factor that we're now starting to see. Up until now, everything's been long-term renters. But now with the overturn of the bill and starting to see that the House is saying, hey, people should be able to use their homes the way they feel makes the most sense, we're now starting to see an uptick of people wanting to buy for Airbnb.
Yeah, what a concept. I mean, I thought that was kind of like the American way. You buy a piece of real estate and use it the way you want to use it.
Well, you would think, but apparently not.
Yeah, things change over time, I guess. Not the best way possible all the time.
You want to buy a house, but high interest rates have got you down? Take the rate challenge and send us a verifiable loan estimate from another lender, and we'll beat it and pay for your appraisal up to $600. Here at Give Mortgage, being powered by UMortgage allows us to provide you with unmatched speed and efficiency and the best rates and fees in the market, all while delivering you the concierge level service you deserve. We want you to have an experience getting a mortgage that you'll never forget, and not because you got put through a meat grinder to get it. At Give Mortgage, we give great advice, we give the best rates, and we give back to charity. Visit us at www.give-mortgage.com or call us at 480-331-4684 to schedule a free consultation to see how we can help.
So are you seeing, what markets are you seeing as being the ones that would be the most appealing for short-term rentals in the markets that you use?
Yeah. So if you can purchase an Airbnb anywhere that you are going to be within 20 minutes of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I don't know if you've heard of any of the updates coming, Brian, but we have an indoor water park being built. We have our actual first intercollegiate African-American college for football players coming in. We have a full outdoor community center and also like an outdoor mall. It's going to be very similar to Polaris down in Columbus. We have so much stuff that's getting built up around that area. So if you can remain within a 20-minute jurisdiction of that, about 20 minutes outside of Amish country, which is going to be a little more southwest, and then up towards Akron or Cleveland, all of those markets are blossoming. And over the next 1 to 3 years, I stay really up to date with all the blueprints and trying to see what the community is bringing so that I can bring live news to consumers. And I will just tell you that there's so much coming in the next 1 to 3 years. And that is also going to have a huge impact on housing prices. So that's why I've been telling people, please listen when we tell you, get partnered with your good loan officer. Brian, I know you can help people in getting them pre-approved, but we need to get people in the mindset that a lot of amazing stuff is coming, but with that, the market has to stay elevated to match those new things. So, it's a big thing coming up in this area.
Well, I know, a lot of us try to educate the public, but obviously we have a smaller voice than a lot of media outlets and
Yes.
TV personalities and things like that. And one of the big concerns that people have out there is, what is going to happen? People have been talking about a housing bubble and a crash and all that kind of stuff. Can you explain to the novice person who's listening to, news personalities and talking heads, chiming in that the housing market's going to crash, real estate's a bad investment? Tell people why that's just really not the case. Because
Right.
I know you and I agree, but
Yeah, I know. So, if you don't do the housing market every day, you don't live in it, I can totally understand not understanding it, And so when you think of listening to your media, you think that they have your best interest in heart, and that is who you should listen to. Unfortunately, our mainstream media over the course of the last 2 to 3 years, I think is a prime example how many opinions, that have been shared, how many thoughts have been shared. And half of those we're finding out, haven't even been accurate. I think the housing market is a very good example of exactly that. We have a lot of opinions, a lot of projections, people that are not even in the market, that are not feet on the street, are the ones that are telling our consumers how the market is going to go and how it's going to pan out, but they're not in the weeds every single day with us. A good example is if the housing market was going to pop after a pandemic, after all of the changes we've had in the community, the deaths we saw with COVID, all the changes that we as consumers have experienced, if we've not seen a housing bubble pop then, I don't think we're going to see a housing bubble pop at all. We've seen this market stay very steady since almost 2019. We're in 2023, 1 month into the year already, and it's crazy just how busy we are. I mean, like I said, I'm seeing numbers that in 5 years I've not seen. And so for that to be happening, and I'm heavily inundated. I start my day at 7 a.m. and I don't end until 9 p.m. That whole day I am tied up talking with clients, looking at houses. I just don't think this housing market is going to crash the way people think it's going to.
yeah, I know. I post a lot on social, and I've had so many people respond to the information that I put out. Oh, the housing market's going to crash. It's going to go down by 30 to 40%. And
Yeah.
I think it's just that they feel like because it went up that fast, that much, that it's inevitable. It's going to happen. There's just no other alternative but to have it come back down that same amount.
Yeah.
And I think what people don't understand is the factors that drove that to happen and what factors are still there that make it so that it's not going to come back down in a dramatic fashion. Like certainly we've seen some moderation in certain markets. You might see a 5, 10, 15% drop in some markets. California, they might have a little bit bigger drop. They also went up more than everybody else too. But in most of the markets, maybe off the coast, we're not seeing big drastic drops. If you see a 5% drop, it's noteworthy, but not a big deal since we went up 20 or 30%. But maybe can you explain how the supply of houses is really kind of the whole thing that's going to hold this market up?
Yeah. So, our National Association for Realtors out here gave a wonderful example to us as realtors that I think consumers need to understand. When we went through COVID and that whole experience over the last 3 years, the housing market and that industry is really what kept the economy up in their numbers. And as supply changes, there's more demand for properties. Like I said, there's a lot of people who have postponed buying, that their leases are running out, rent is over, and it's going to make more financial sense for them to buy a home. Here in our area, I don't know how it is for you, Brian, but our people can actually buy a house and pay less for a monthly payment than they can to rent. So as this supply and demand begins to creep up, that is going to hold the market in a higher platform. It's going to make those prices remain strong. And now that there's been so much economy shift, the housing market is really what is continuing to keep, at least our market, it's keeping our economy up. It's keeping our jobs in line. It's keeping income flowing in for families. So I think it'd be really a hard sell for me to believe that there's going to be a pop anytime soon. And I hope consumers hear that and find some positivity that, there's a positive silver lining to this. And it's find the home that you want. Life is short. You don't need to keep postponing this. We can work on interest rates. We can ask for sellers to pay your closing cost, and we can ask for interest rate reductions. But holding off on for some, and it's an American dream, to own a home. It's like, why hold off on that?
Yeah, I think what people don't understand when they look at what happened and why things went up so much, it was a combination of factors. And the one that most people don't understand, or there's really two, I think, primary ones that people don't understand, is housing supply. We were already in a cycle before the pandemic hit of having low housing supply. Mm-hmm. And it only got lower because we have demographics driving the demand. In addition to the low interest rates, we have more people who are becoming the age of your average first-time home buyer, which is like 33 to 34 years old. If we go that 33, 34 years back and look at what are birth rates, we can see birth rates back then are trending up for the next several years, like the next 4 years. So that's telling us that for the next 4 years, we're going to have more people becoming 33, 34-year-old, which is when most people go out and buy their first home. And when you have a first-time buyer, they're not selling a property, they're taking a piece of inventory off the market. And that's what we started to see. And then when we had the pandemic hit and interest rates went down, well, that made everything more affordable. It motivated more people to buy and sell. So now we had increased demand from low interest rates on top of the increased demand just from demographics. And then we have the builders across the country not able to keep pace with the demand. They got burned back in 2005 and 2006. They were building way more houses than were actually required by new home formations. Yeah. And so they kept doing it for an extra 2 years beyond the drop in new household formations. And so now they're gun shy. They decreased production dramatically over the last decade, and they're not keeping pace with it now. And now with all the supply chain issues and some of the immigration policies that have made it more difficult to hire unskilled laborers, made things more expensive. All of those things have made it such that builders are just not keeping up. I mean, they're usually short 500,000 to 600,000 units across the country in new home inventory to be able to keep up with the demand that's there. And so when people just listen to the news, like, they don't get all those details. They don't understand that we're short on supply. We're going to continue being short on supply, and the demand is going to continue to increase because more people are needing to buy their first house. Like, those two factors, I mean, it's simple, basic economics, supply and demand. That is what's going to keep things well supported. And you're right. Like, whenever there's issues with the economy, the government steps in and does what it can to keep the economy going, largely based upon real estate. Like, we saw that happen in the beginning of the pandemic. They dropped interest rates, made it cheap to borrow money. They flooded the economy with money. And then interest rates were so low because the government was buying all the mortgages that everybody could get one at a low interest rate. So that just increased demand even more. Like, if we end up in a deep recession, I don't think anybody thinks it's going to be a deep recession, but probably a recession technically, they're going to do what they can to help that out. Like, they're still in the plan of increasing rates to slow things down, but the Fed has this special skill of always killing economies when they need to get inflation under control. That's like the solution that they have: throw us into a recession. And when they do that, the only way to get us out of it is to then make borrowing cheaper again. And here we go, another cycle of strong housing markets and low interest rates. Yeah. So I just hate people listening to the TV talk show hosts and the pundits, giving all of their opinions that are just not grounded in all those facts that we in the industry know about.
That's absolutely true. And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, just turn off the news, turn off the negative, go to your local realtor and ask the questions, because we're here. I mean, we've seen, and we're in the trenches. We see how the market is every day. So, what better person to ask than someone who's actually doing it?
So aside from the warm weather and the palm trees, what's professionally, what's motivated you to expand to Florida?
So it's interesting. I kind of expand based off of my client needs. So one thing that my team is really big about is I want to bring as much value to my clients as possible. And one thing that kept coming up time and time again is I wish we could invest in Florida. I have people relocating in and out of the state constantly. And so I thought, okay, what better way to bring value than to actually get licensed and learn the market. So I've been going back and forth to Florida, learning the market, learning my way around town, trying to connect with people so that they could teach me, because that to me is my job. I'm a local real estate expert. So I'm a market expert, and I want to be able to bring that value to my clients. And it's been so far, just beginning stages of getting in there. It's been great.
That's awesome. I think that's important for people to understand about, choosing the right realtor, especially on the buy side, but it's important on the listing side too, is having somebody who's actually a market expert. It's
Mhm.
not just the person that can take you around and open up the house and,
Right.
you're not a glorified Uber driver with a lockbox key. I
Yeah.
mean, to know the market is critical because you know what's happening, you know what's coming in the future. Like, you do a lot more studying than I think the typical agent does about what's happening in the community, what business development is happening, what legislatively is impacting things. And those are all really, really important functions of a professional real estate agent.
Yeah.
And that's something that people should be asking about when they're trying to select a realtor, right?
Absolutely. And it's just so interesting. What you tell your clients makes all the difference. And the knowledge that I have, I mean, a lot of my clients are out of state. They're sometimes in another country. So I have to be able to be their eyes and ears. And as a realtor, I'm not just a realtor. So one thing I try to teach to my team, we are market experts. We are people that are feet on the street. So it's my job to provide value, care, and confidentiality for my client. So we try to go the extra step to make sure we know what we're talking about. If you don't know it, don't say it. And that's one thing that I can't say. I've run into a lot of realtors that unfortunately are not bringing that same value. And it shows, clients know that, they feel that, and they deserve to be given the best type of care, because some of them aren't here, to do that for themselves.
I think that's a good piece of advice you kind of touched on there is, like, people should trust their gut. Like, when
Yeah.
you're asking
Yep.
questions of people, if you're getting the feeling that they're either dancing around and not answering questions, or not answering it correctly, or just throwing a lot of BS out just to fill the air with words, like,
Yep.
if you feel that way, you're probably right. It's probably a good indication that you need to go interview another one, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a huge thing. So, when you're talking to realtors, the biggest thing is you need to make sure you trust your realtor. I can't stress it enough. They are the ones who are taking care of a very large transactional purchase for you, or a sale. And they're going to be talking to other clients on your behalf, or helping represent you, whether you're in the state or out of the state. So if you don't trust them, it's not going to be a really good outturn.
Yeah, just because Aunt Sally has a real estate license doesn't mean she's the right one to represent you, right?
Oh, yes, right. Yes. I cannot tell you how many people they go, oh, I'm going to work with my aunt, or I'm going to work with my best friend, Susie. And I'm like, okay, good luck, have fun. But I will tell you that sometimes is not the best thing. Like, you can't just work with someone because they hold a realtor's license. Like, you have to actually work with someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it can cost you a lot of money making those kind of
Yes.
decisions. Like, same thing with somebody wanting to do for sale by owner. Like, they think they're saving money, but they're not looking at the net. You're
Yeah.
probably going to get less of a sales price. And then when you look at the sales price and what you've negotiated in, seller paid closing costs or concessions or whatever, you're much, much more likely to net more money by working with the realtor and paying the commissions than you get by trying to do it on your own because you're not an expert.
Right. And you know what? So one thing you touched on that I think a lot of consumers don't know, ever since the recent market, when we were going through the pandemic, there was a ton of buyers that were being told by their realtors to waive inspections. And here in our market, I have had a number of people who tried to sell their home for sale by owner, or they were trying to purchase a home, they waived inspections. And I don't remember the exact statistics, so I don't want to even guess it, but there is a large number of people, they're all in lawsuits today. All of them. So, and that goes back to, if you're trying to do for sale by owner, you're really missing a big chunk of money. And it's not even the money, it's the liability. They're taking on a full liability that most people that they're selling a home are giving over to the realtor. And the second piece is when you're finding a realtor, you've got to make sure you're doing your research, because these are things that, like, if I have an agent who's saying, hey, yeah, just waive inspections, and then 2 years later I find out like my ceilings are caving in, well, it's like, well, did you do your research? Did you actually vet your realtor?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a few of those situations, where buyers did that and now they're coming back to regret it and
Yeah.
Involved in lawsuits. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy time. I think people just had such a FOMO mentality. It's like, I will do anything to get this house. I don't care what I got to pay. I don't care what I've got to waive, and it was just a nutso time. So you touched on a couple of things that are important, but if you have to distill it down to one thing that you think that the typical consumer doesn't understand about real estate, but they really should understand, what would you say that most important thing would be?
I really, and this sounds probably like I'm trying to do a sales pitch. I am truly not. This really is the difference right now. Get yourself a good realtor. Like, get yourself a really good market expert and do your vetting, find them, because that realtor knows the market or should know the market. And they're going to be the ones to really help you navigate getting partnered with the right lender, getting partnered with the right inspection companies. Really, they're going to be your advocate through this whole process, or they should. So that to me is your number one thing you should do when you're buying or selling a house.
I think it's really important, because the other thing that I think it gets lost on some people is, in this day and age, everybody wants to go online and Google everything and do all the research, which is great. It helps you get a good background of information. It helps you ask the right questions to the people that you're working with. But like for me, I personally feel like you do that, you figure out, okay, who's your realtor going to be? Then I think you should listen to their advice. Like a lot of times people say, okay, well, I want to go and, I appreciate your advice, or I'm going to go look for the inspection company. I'm going to go look for the lender. I've even seen some people want to go look for the title company on their own. And yet some real estate agents, they get real skittish about making strong recommendations for the people to use. But it's like, you know what, if you're a professional and you've vetted out these companies and the results are going to be good for the client experience is going to be good, they're going to be successful closing. I think it goes both ways. I think, realtors should feel confident about making strong recommendations to people. Obviously, they get the final say so, but I also think consumers should take that very seriously and give it a lot of weight in their decision-making process, as opposed to just going and finding some, random company, online to go and handle this transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. You touched on a lot of good topics I think are spot on.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that I had something good to say today.
You did. You nailed it.
You had a ton of great information too. I appreciate it. If somebody was listening and watching and they think, well, you know what, I think Amanda and her team might be a great market expert for us, what is the ways that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can actually, there's 3 ways you can get a hold of us. You can go to our website, which is amhomegroupllc.com. You can call us at 330-605-5143, or you can simply search me. I'm sure the tag will be below. You can search me on Facebook, and it has all of our contact information, email, WhatsApp, how to text me. I'm available pretty much anytime. So if you call, I answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you're super busy and joining us here today and sharing all your knowledge with folks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I thank you guys for listening to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Love to have you guys join us again next time. Again, please, if you would, share this episode, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube so you can catch the next episode next week.
Thanks for joining us, and please remember to go and subscribe, like, share, all that cool stuff to help us grow, and come back to listen to our next episode. Until then, go out and live life uncensored.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to help us out and subscribe. Follow and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And check us out on YouTube for the full video podcast. If you want more information on any of the topics discussed on today's episode, email us at uncensoreddrealestatepodcast@gmail.com or give the Cardenas Mortgage Team a call at 480-331-4684.